Hey there, here's a quick note. This podcast contains general financial advice only. That means it's not specific to you, your needs, goals, or objectives, so don't act on the information until you've spoken with your financial advisor. You'll find our full disclosure, disclaimer, and link to our financial services guide in the show notes.
In today's episode of the Australian Finance Podcast, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the gig economy, which covers everything from ride-sharing services like Uber to providing specific services for a fee, like taking on Airtasker jobs to assemble IKEA bookshelves or helping a small baking business with their social media. It's estimated that over 250,000 Australians are part of the gig economy, which includes side hustlers with a 9-to-5 and those working full-time as a freelancer. So chances are that many of you have actually tried your hand at a side hustle or freelance work arrangement at some point. Now, although gig economy work can provide greater flexibility and choices in your day-to-day work, it can also be very unpredictable and uncertain on both your time and money, which can lead you to financial stress. So, in today's conversation, our producer Monique, who's worked extensively in the gig economy over the last decade, and myself, who've dabbled occasionally in small freelance jobs on the side, chat to someone who's been fully immersed in the gig economy world. We're going to unpack everything from managing difficult clients and getting paid to unpaid experience and budgeting with a variable income. Our guest today is Michelle Grace Hunder, who is a live music photographer based in Melbourne. She tours with Ruel, has her own photography courses, she's published a book, she's made a film, and a lot more that we're going to get into in today's episode of the Australian Finance Podcast.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for being here today. It's really nice for you to be here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good. So, we're just going to chat a bit about the gig economy, some experience you may have had, all that kind of stuff. When did you first get into photography?
Yeah, so I started a little bit later in life. I was 31 when I first picked up a camera. So it's a bit of an unusual story and a weird kind of pathway into both photography and freelance work, because before that I was kind of working in sport and events and kind of more a corporate life, and then, going into like the freelance and more, work that comes and goes, and you've got to, get used to that type of flow. Took a little while to get used to as well. But yeah, so I started at 31 and I really fell in love with music photography specifically. And I loved working with artists and musicians, and it was kind of a bit of a natural progression, but I kind of just fell into it essentially. And like almost 12 years later, happy to say that it's been really successful, and I'm very fortunate to do something that I really love.
That's fantastic. I think there's often the perception that the gig economy is just for people in their 20s and at uni and people that are sort of all over the place. But as you entered a little bit later on in your career, do you think there was any challenges changing a bit later on?
To be honest, I think the fact that I'd, had a pretty solid working career, in events and marketing and that sort of space, it kind of actually set me up a little bit better, because I had a really good understanding of the business world and just how to kind of, communicate effectively. I was never concerned about negotiations and things like that, which I think a lot of younger people I really see struggle. How to price themselves accordingly, how to communicate effectively, how to meet deadlines, like all of those things that I think are really essential to what I do now as a freelancer and working in, the music industry. I think I really learned from having kind of a stable, job that, was 9 to 5. So, it's been really beneficial, I think, to learn, I guess, to have those skills and then come into something that's, it's not 9 to 5. My hours are all over the place. I'm often working late at night, and it kind of set me up to have just, I think, a really good business structure, essentially.
Yeah, nice. Like, how do you manage your difficult clients? I've had the experience like where you quote someone, they either don't get back to you or they say it's out of their budget, that kind of stuff. How do you deal with that kind of thing?
I never really see them as difficult clients. I just see them as clients that need to be communicated to effectively to, like, if, for example, if they say that I'm out of their budget, I either need to communicate why I price myself that way, or like I need to show that I'm adding value to their business. And so that's, or it's a space for me to negotiate. So if it's, if they're saying it's out of the budget, I'm like, okay, so what is your budget? How can I then tailor what I give you as a service to fit into that budget? So is it less hours? Is it less photographs? Are the photos utilized in a different way? Like, it's always an opportunity, I think. It's not, I never see those types of things as being overly difficult. I mean, obviously we do have nightmare clients that, always want more than you can, that they're paid for, or that you are humanly able to provide and stuff like that. I just think it's really honest communication. And again, I never really shy away from those types of issues, and I just communicate really effectively. And if they've asked for something that's outside my means or outside the time frame or anything like that, I'm just really upfront and let them know. Or, hey, what you paid for actually got you XYZ. You're asking for ABC now. We need to work out something further, or it's an opportunity to negotiate, not something to be overly concerned with. Having said that, some people are just, you will never please them. And I'm also not afraid to, if I get to that point, to be like, listen, I don't think this is working out. Perhaps I'm not the photographer for you. So having that confidence to go, sometimes the client relationship, it just doesn't match you, and maybe there's somebody that would do a better job, or they can provide a different service. It's just really open and honest communication. And I think, after you've been in the industry for a while, I'm not really personally attached to stuff. I don't get too emotionally involved. So if it's not working out, I'm happy just to cut my losses and be catch you later.
That's so good you said that, because that's something that I was always scared of doing, just saying no, even to begin with. If something wasn't matching my type of style or whatever, I was always too scared to say no.
I love saying no. It's one of my favorite things. I also like referring people. Now I think, I'm really established, I've got plenty of work, and if I can see that a job's not for me, I love referring it to people that I know that will do a way better job than me as well. It's just that's not my style. This person will do an amazing job for that, because it's going to be less stress on me if I'm trying to fit a brief that I know I'm going to really struggle with. It's not my style. It's not how I do it. But I know someone's going to knock it out of the park. I think that's a really good business practice as well. It also reflects really well on me, because I'm going to give the client, they're going to have a better artist that's going to work even better than I will. So there's no negatives in that situation, I think.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Have you ever had someone not actually pay you at all after the end of a job or a shoot or anything? And how did you deal with that?
It's only happened a couple of times. Generally speaking, it's been totally fine. I had one client once, and I'm just trying to think what I ended up doing. I know there was one particular client. I'm not a big fan of publicly calling out. I'm actually quite against it, because I think there's just too much call out culture of just ridiculous stuff. But there was one instance where a client had actually used the film that myself and Claudia worked on for International Women's Day, and they had this screening, and then they didn't pay us. And it was 6 months later, I ended up getting legal advice, and and it wasn't a lot of money, but it was kind of the principle. It was okay, you were using our film to make yourselves look good on International Women's Day, and then you didn't even pay the female artists that were responsible for making it. So it just felt like a real slap in the face. And the lawyer said, look, I don't usually suggest this, but in this instance, perhaps doing I did a tweet that was basically hey, has anyone heard from these particular people, because we're trying to get paid? It was really this innocent, does anyone know how I can contact them? They're not getting back to us. And what actually happened in that instance is it was a venue, and two of the bookers that booked that venue were actually women that had seen the film. And they emailed me and they were like, yo, what's happening here? And I told them, and they're like, okay, we're going to email them and say, we're not going to book any further events at their venue unless they pay you. And they literally paid us within like 10 minutes of the tweet going out.
Amazing.
So like,
that's one way to do it.
I'm not like, again, I'm not a big fan of like, because there's so many more steps you need to go through to get to that point where you would like, I think potentially publicly saying something like that, I would be exhausting all options and making sure that all of the modes of communication have been exhausted. And are they just like literally swerving you? Do they have financial difficulties? Can there be a payment plan? Like all of those things. If they're just not responding though, I think, occasionally just a little cheeky tweet might get them across the line.
A lot of this, it can all seem a bit overwhelming for someone just getting started in the gig economy and the freelance world. So
for sure.
It sounds like it's something where having a good community around you of other people working in the industry or trying to get their feet in would be quite helpful.
Yeah, I've actually gone into bat for people too, like that I've been mentoring that will say, hey, this person hasn't paid me. And then I'll drop them a cheeky email as well to say, look, the industry's too small and you can't do this to people, especially young people. And especially young women, I think too, like this is how like a lot of young women lose confidence. They think it's their issue or they haven't delivered or they're not happy with the product or whatever. And, I'm pretty firm with this stuff. I am older and I do have a type of personality that am happy to have those conversations, really honest conversations. So, if I can step in that situation for someone, I will for sure.
Would you have any tips for someone just getting started who maybe hasn't had some of those hard conversations before, or hasn't maybe asserted their own boundaries or negotiated? How would they get started with that?
Yeah, I always tell people that remember that it's business and like it's not personal. Often it's not personal. So just trying to remove the emotion and or thinking that you've done something wrong, because that's what I think they often think. It's like I think it's really personal. They don't like the photos, or just trying to remove that and just say, like, in any situation, like if you've provided a service, then you get paid. Like that's just how it works. Like it's just like kind of breaking it down to be really black and white, not emotional. You've done the thing that you said you were going to do and now you get the money. Like, so if you can kind of break it down like that, I think it helps people have that confidence and assertiveness. And the other thing is actually having the knowledge around the industry. So like knowing your rights, knowing copyright, knowing contracts. Like I'm really big on young people. Like you have to arm yourself with the knowledge so you know what you're talking about, because a lot of the confidence stuff is actually a lack of understanding and not knowing where they can push, what the boundaries are. So you need to take that on yourself and, arm yourself with the knowledge that's going to help you with that confidence.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I find like contracts are really helpful, but not all the time. So like when's the best time you should like use a contract?
I'm actually not big on using contracts myself. Like a lot of the work that I do involves contracts. So a lot of people will give me contracts, for example, like labels or artists. I'm not big on actually providing contracts to clients. I'm big on really clear communication, written communication through either a quoting process or an email process. Contracts, I think, can be like legally, like this legal jargon, words that a lot of people don't even understand. So instead, I'll just break it down in an email to say, this is what you get. This is what these photos entitle you to, how, like what the usage is, how you're able to use them. If you use them outside of this, it will be additional, like just really like dot point, super clear. None of this like, 4-page thing that has all this legal shit that nobody can like actually read. So I avoid that. A lot of people, like there'll be definitely people that disagree with me, especially like, for example, photographers in America. America's so litigious, like they just always want contracts, where I'm like, I'd rather just be really clear and upfront in an email. I really very rarely have issues because I just make that communication very clear. And if there is something that, if they've used a photo that's outside the usage, again, just really clearly communicating them. And it doesn't have to be like this big drama. It's just like, hey, we discussed this, you've used it outside the, the agreement. That's usually a fee. maybe we can negotiate something. Like, it's just, again, an opportunity to communicate clearly, effectively. Doesn't need to be snarky, just really professional and nice. You could be assertive and not be a bitch or not be an asshole as well. Like, that's something I'm really big on, is just like, just being nice to deal with, and just being really clear and honest with your communication.
Being nice really gets you a long way, I find.
Definitely. It's one of the things that I was really firm on when I was started in the industry, because there's so much negativity around the music industry and you have to be an arsehole. It's so cutthroat. And I was like, I don't actually believe that. I think there's really lovely people in this industry, and you can be a nice person and it's totally fine. And you know, you don't allow yourself to be walked over, but that's also different than being an asshole. Do you know what I mean?
100%. So like, when it comes to actual jobs and shoots, how do you know what to charge? Because everything I find when I like get a new job or whatever, it's just really hard to know what to charge the person for their type of job.
The real answer is how much they will pay, but you don't know how much they'll pay. So that's there's a couple of things. So a lot of people get really confused when I talk to them about this stuff, because I have different rates for everything. I don't have a rate. So there's a few things that I'll consider when I'm quoting someone. Are they with a label? So are they actually signed to a label that is funding this work, or are they an independent artist where this is coming out of their own pocket? So those two things are really different for me, and I will charge differently. The other second thing is, how are the photos going to be utilized? Where are they going, and what usage do they require? So is it just promotional uses? Is it just on the website? Is it on Instagram? Are they doing a massive tour run where they're going to be using your photos for merchandise? Like, there's so many variables that come into a quote. And then the third thing is obviously your time, like how much time are you spending on the day? And then how much time is it going to take you to edit? So all of those things need to be taken into consideration. The real thing is, like, it's actually like, there's no answer to this. It's actually a bit of trial and error to see what the market is going to bear. So when you start getting lots of yeses, you're like, oh, okay, cool, people can afford this. Keep bumping your prices up, you start getting a bunch of no's, you're like, okay, people can't afford this. Like, it's really, honestly, it's that easy. It's just like a bit of trial and error to see about where is about the sweet spot. Obviously, a few things come into, you know, how long have you been doing it for? What's your experience? Do you have a reputation? Does your folio back up what you're charging? All of those things come into play, but there's not a answer to this, and all of us charge differently based on all of those things that I just mentioned. So can be confusing. Once you've been doing it a little while, you kind of, I don't know, I just know the sweet spot now. I'm just like, oh yeah, this person will be able to afford this person will be able to afford this. Like, you kind of start to really understand the differences in the clients.
Do you find that talking to people who are doing similar things in the industry like you and comparing rates, does that help you sort of decide your own rates?
Yeah, all of us that are doing this professionally, we all talk all of the time. And, you know, if somebody be like, oh, hey, I know you worked with this person, or not, even sometimes like magazines or venue or whatever, we all just talk and just say, hey, like, what would you charge for this? Or what do you think about this? Or just like, we're constantly talking. So,
I've definitely asked you that question.
Well, I know I am. So I'm just assuming that everyone else does this, but I definitely do this. I've always been really open with this stuff and trying to help, like Monique just said as well, like just younger people coming through as well, and just being really open, because it's really hard when you first start out. Like, I just had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, I don't know, $100, like, and you just like, you know, you work up from there.
Yeah. And given this is a finance podcast, I want to talk a little bit about the money side of things, because that's important as well. And given you're talking about different rates and different income coming from all sorts of different income sources, different clients, you're invoicing, how on earth do you deal with managing sort of your day-to-day living costs with income coming from all over the place, so you're not really sure when and where?
Good question. Both my husband and I are both freelancers, so I think it's hard to answer because you just get in the flow. It's really hard when you first start out. So my husband's been doing, he's like he does more contract work. So it's like bigger blocks of contract, but he's still, essentially he's got his own business and he's contracted in and out and it's creative as well. But I guess it's bigger blocks that, might be 6 months and then another 4 months or whatever. Whereas mine is literally shoot to shoot to shoot. So I think initially it was a bit easier because we had his overall income was kind of like the stable income, and then mine was the one that was kind of fluctuating and all over the place. And now, I've been doing this for so long, it's like there's so much money owing that it's almost like forced savings because it's going to come in. And for example, I think I've got actually I can tell you, I'll have a look at my accounting software. What have I got outstanding? Probably like 10 or 15 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, $10,000 at the moment. So $10,000 is owed, and that's just going to trickle in over the next month or so. And then I'm still doing jobs. So it's just like I've constantly got this flow now of money that's owed, that's coming in slowly. And, one might be $1,000, one might be $6,000, one might be $300. It's all over the place, but it's just like it's trickling in kind of at an even pace. So it's just like, yeah, you kind of get in the flow. I know for people that have, a monthly or a bi-fortnightly or however they get paid, they're probably listening to this and having a heart attack and going, how the hell? You do just get, I don't know, you just get really used to it. And, it's a big contract a big invoice lands and you're like, hell yeah, I can go shopping this weekend. $6,000 just landed. Or, it might be a lighter week and you have to chase a few people up. But it's like, yeah, once you're in the flow, it does seem to just come through a little bit more evenly than at the start where you're like literally, it's hard. It takes you, I always say to people probably like 5 years to get yourself really established and in that flow where you are a little bit more comfortable. And I was just like, the hustle was real at the start. It was like just work, because you don't know where that next paycheck's coming from. So, but once you've been established for a little while, you can, be a bit pickier with your clients, take the more high paying jobs, take a few more days off. It's like, it's a lot. The work-life balance once you're established is really why you do something like this. It's really, you are in control of the days that you can shoot and the days that you don't want to shoot, and you can take time off and all that sort of stuff. So, I think it's the best job in the world, and I have such great work-life balance, but, probably 7 or 8 years that wasn't the case. And I was in a pile of exhaustion and like taking every single job ever. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've had some friends who have gone into freelance thinking they'd have great work-life balance, but they've ended up working 7 days a week, sort of most of the hours of the day. And they've really, they might have been better off in a 9 to 5 with the amount of work they were doing for what they were getting paid.
It depends on your personality, I think, and it depends what's important to you. Like for me, I'm actually not financially driven at all. I really, I love my job so much. I'm just really lucky that the money did come through like lots and lots of work and just gaining a great reputation and doing these really big projects that people are aware of. But, and I love the uncertainty, and I love the fact that I don't know, August is completely free at the moment, but that's going to, soon that's going to be booked up. I love that. I don't know when the next email's coming in. For me, there's a freedom in that I really, really love. And I felt very restricted in my jobs. I used to get really bored after a couple of years in my kind of 9 to 5 jobs, very restless, very bored. I'm not great when I'm sitting at a desk doing the same thing every day. And that's what I love about my job. Every single day is different. I'm all over the place. Sometimes at the studio, sometimes on location, sometimes I'm editing all day. Sometimes I'm overseas on tour for 3 months. Like it's totally random, and I love that. Like that just gives me life, honestly.
Not everyone can say they love uncertainty, so
I've leaned into the uncertainty, and I just would not have it any other way. And it's frustrating sometimes because I know I know if Ruel's going to be touring soon, there's going to be big chunks of time that I'm away, and I don't know when that time's going to be, so I can't plan anything. And so people will be like, what are you doing in November? I'm like, I have no idea. So it can be hard and challenging with, for example, family events or weddings and stuff like that. Like, I just never know if I'm going to be around, but I don't know, I also just love that. So it's definitely a personality thing, and if you don't like uncertainty, this is not the career for you. And if you like it being a bit more spontaneous, or someone might email me next week and go, hey, we need you in America at this time, February, whatever, and I can just be like, cool, yeah, I'm gonna go.
Awesome.
So there's something really awesome and liberating in that being an option.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, I'm sure you get like many family and friends asking you to do particular shoots for them and stuff like that. Can it be awkward to ask payment from them?
No. It's so funny. I'm not awkward about money at all. Like, this is my job. So, of course there's definitely situations when I will just do it because they're, a really great friend or whatever. But if they're just like an acquaintance or maybe not a super, super close friend, or for example, a wedding, like it's a wedding, I have a fee that I will charge. It's like, I call it my mate's rates fee for weddings, which is like literally like a quarter of what I would usually charge. But I do think that you need to charge something for something that's that much work, like a full 10 to 12 hour day plus a week of editing and stuff like that. It's like a big job versus, going to a party with a camera, which whatever. Mum will say, can you come and take some photos of your brother's birthday or whatever? And I'm like, sure. So, again, it's like, I'm not just a hard ass, but if it's something that's like, I think, you definitely need to charge a fee for, I just say, hey, this is my fee for that. And then if they want to go to someone else, then that's fine. Like, it doesn't have to be awkward.
Yeah.
I don't think. And I always, especially with weddings, I'm always like, it's so personal. Like, I don't get offended if they want to go somewhere else or whatever. That's totally fine. It's not a problem.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Even like when most photographers or anyone else in the arts, when they start out, I feel like volunteering is the way to go. Do we really have to volunteer to begin with, or is there a way around it?
No way around it.
Yeah.
No, that like, I like how you said volunteer as well. Essentially, it's just working for free. But you absolutely need to be just putting yourself out there as much as possible, because essentially you need two things to happen. One, people need to know you exist.
Mm-hmm.
And two, they need to know what you're like to work with. Those two things are really important. So I was just shooting. I was going to every single gig you could imagine. I was working with anyone that would work with me at the start, just so that they knew who I was, and they knew what I was like to work with. So what happens then is when you work, and so both my personal projects, one was a book on Australian hip hop when I worked with 182 artists in 2 years. One was a documentary and photo series where I worked with over 100 women for that as well, a period of 4 years. So I don't know, what's that?
A lot of people.
Probably a lot of people. Over 250. That's individual artists, management, like all the people that are attached to those artists as well, that then know who I am. So then when they come back, because then they'll need photos for something else in the future, and then they come back to me, and that's the opportunity to charge when people come to you asking you to do something. Like, it's really clear cut for me. Like, I don't think it's very difficult at all. Like, people really overcomplicate this, but it's like, if people are coming to you for a service, then you need to charge. If you're going to someone else and saying, hey, would you like to work with me? I've got this idea, whatever. That might be a situation where you can show them how you are to work with. You can maybe do something really creative that's like, outside what they would usually do. Just like a creative type of shoot that might be for your folio. You might want to work with a particular artist, but they don't know who you are. So it's a great opportunity to just like contact them and say, hey, do you want to jam? Just come to the studio and do some cool stuff. And then if they love working with you, hopefully they'll come back to you. And then that's the opportunity that you can start charging them. So, yeah, definitely a big fan of getting out there and doing free work, but just knowing the right time to charge and knowing when you're being taken advantage of. Heaps of people don't know that for some reason, and they just continue to do free work for like 10 years, and then they get upset that they're not getting paid, but they haven't put value on the service that they're offering. So it's like, that's on you to understand when you're being taken advantage of, when's the appropriate time to be charging. Again, I don't know, for some reason creatives seem really bad at knowing that. I don't know why.
Given you're not getting paid potentially for a while at the beginning and life costs money to live in,
yes,
how do you balance that? Do you see most people just working part-time jobs or doing their creative stuff on the side of their 9 to 5?
Yeah, so, and also too, when you're at the start working for free, it doesn't mean you have to be, all your jobs are for free. It just means like, you know, some of them might be for free, then you might be doing bits and pieces for people. I'm just telling people to shoot as much, like anybody that needs photography, just say that you'll do it. Just shoot. Definitely a part-time job. When I first started, I had a job 2 days a week that was actually with a photographer, helping him on his business. So he was paying me to do, and it gave me a great insight on how a photography business works. So I was helping, he had a real estate photography business, and I was helping him with bookings and editing and Photoshop and all of these things to assist him. So I was still in the industry, working 2 days a week, getting a little bit of income. Then I was able to shoot the rest of the days. Maybe a couple of days are working for free. Maybe a couple of days were like, you know, getting a little bit of pocket money. And then, as you know, you keep building up to the point where I think maybe within about 6 months, I said to him, hey, I'm actually too busy to do this now. And he was like stoked. He's like, he's one of my mentors at the start. And he's like, I'm so glad that you're at the point that you don't need this job anymore. So, which is really great. You know, you get to work up to that point where you don't need that extra income.
And given you've spoken about the importance of both knowing other people in the industry to bounce rates and ideas off, and even meeting new clients and working for them, how do you start building this network if you're just taking your first step into the freelance industry of whatever freelance creative thing you want to do?
Yeah, you really need to immerse yourself in the scene or in the industry that you're in. So like for me, when I first started, I just immersed myself in the hip hop scene here in Melbourne. Like I just became part of the culture. So I was just at every single show, every single event, everything that had anything to do with anybody, I was just there. You literally have to just become part of it. And it's, you know, social events, meeting bands, meeting artists, meeting managers and publicists. And, you know, there's so many industry events. You know, there might be a Women in Music lunch, or there might be something that's got to do with Sounds Australia that you can be involved with. There's so many organisations that form part of the industry that you can get involved in to meet people. There's no use just being on the sidelines going, you know, and this is like a lot of photographers do this, like they'll just pop in to do shoots and that's it. But if you want to be part of the community, you really need to get involved in as much as possible and just to meet as many people. Those people are the people who are going to hire you. So it's like, I don't like using the word networking because I feel like it feels really transactional, but just you literally need to make friends with the people that are going to hire you. And people actually really enjoy hiring their friends. They like people working with people that they like. So it doesn't have to be this weird, networking, you know, handing out business card. Like it's literally just making friends and just letting them know that, you know, hey, I do this. Like, can I send you a link to my folio or whatever, you know, or can I work with one of your artists that's new and up and coming? Maybe they don't have a big budget. Maybe we could just work together and on something cool. So there's so many ways that you can, you know, get yourself known. And I feel like it's just a really organic process. It doesn't need to be this very, you know, stiff, like, you know, we're going to go and hand out business cards, which nobody does in this industry. So don't do that.
Someone actually asked me for a business card the other day. I'm like, I don't actually have any.
You can have my number.
I had them when I first started out, but like now, I mean, you know, everything for us now is on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, so.
Yeah. Anyway, if people want to learn more about you and your work, where would you like to send them? Yeah,
I've got a website. It's just michellegracehunder.com. And all of my social handles are Michelle G Hunder. So Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, all of the things. Michelle G Hunder. You'll find me there.
Beautiful.
Google me. Yeah. Google me, you'll find me.
Wonderful. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share with listeners who are maybe interested in getting involved in the freelance creative arts industry?
Yes, it's a weird time at the moment for sure. Like post-COVID, we're coming out of like a lot of people left our industry, which I do believe actually is an opportunity because we're just short-staffed in every aspect of the music industry at the moment across the board. So if you are interested in doing something in this industry, it's a really good time to put your hand up and try and get involved and make yourself useful, because it's like the industry is bleeding from internally. We need a lot of help and a lot of hands on deck. So yeah, I definitely see that as an opportunity. And I guess just to go back on what I was saying before, it's like it's a really, like, you do need to work really, really, really hard, and it is it's not glamorous all of the times, but there are such amazing perks that come with working in the music industry. You get to work with such incredible artists and people, and all the people that surround the industry as well. So for all of the hard work that you do, that there's all of these amazing highlights that happen, these pinch yourself moments where you're just like, I can't believe this is happening to me, or I can't believe I'm working with this person. So yeah, hopefully it evens out in the end.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Australian Finance Podcast today. And I hope listeners, especially those interested in this career path, take a lot from today's episode.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast, where our mission is to improve the financial futures of all Australians. If you'd like to learn more, create a free account at rask.com.au/account to download free episode workbooks, bonus resources, and take our amazing free personal finance courses.
You can also join our online community by following the link in the description. If you enjoyed the show, what we'd love is for you to leave us a snappy review on iTunes. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Rask Australia. Kate and I are also on both of those channels. Finally, if you have any feedback, suggestions for episodes or guests to come on the show, or you just have a question for us, shoot us an email at podcast@rask.com.au.